Good evening. It is now 6:30 p.m., and I would ask that if you would please stand to join in with the invocation to be given by Chaplain Leonard Himes, and then with Buhler Baptist Church, and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Thank you. Our Father, we thank you for this opportunity this evening as, Lord, we assemble in this place. We thank you for our county, and Lord, we know the needs are great. But Lord, we also know you enable and give wisdom to work through those things. So I ask you tonight in this meeting to impart that wisdom as only you can. And with that will come understanding and knowledge. Bless this time together. Thank you, Lord, for our commissioners and their service. Pray you'd bless them, all the administration present tonight, Lord. And we just ask you again your blessing on this time in Jesus' name. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chaplain Himes, and good evening and welcome everyone to tonight's Board of Commissioners meeting. The meeting is now hereby called to order. And we do have two planning and zoning items that were advertised for this meeting that have been tabled until further notice. The first one that has been tabled is public hearing COM PAM 1803, which is Jeff Dalton requesting an amendment to the comprehensive plan for the property at 137 Jackson Lake Road in District 3. And then the other public hearing that has been postponed is also with Jeff Dalton requesting a rezoning from RA to C3 for the property located at 137 Jackson Lake Road. Are there any other revisions or updates to the agenda?
I would ask that we table the resolution from the Water Authority. I didn't see enough information in it for it to be on the agenda.
Okay, so we have a recommendation to table the resolution for the Water Authority.
Second.
Okay, wait a minute, are there any other revisions or changes? There is one also from Parks and Recreation regarding the shooting simulated artillery, and I recommend that that one is tabled for further information as well.
Second.
Okay, so we've got the public hearing amendments that were already announced, and then we're also adding to the revised agenda to table the resolution regarding the Water Authority, and also to table the Parks and Recreation resolution regarding the Nash Farm approval shooting simulated artillery and simulated gunfire. Are there any other changes or revisions to be voted upon? Hearing none, open the floor for a motion to accept the agenda with these changes.
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
And a second. All in favor? Okay, it passes 5-0, considering Commissioner Wilson is not here this evening. Okay, we'll now move into our next item, which is a Superior Court update by the Honorable Brian Amir. So welcome this evening, Judge.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight just to very briefly update you on things that are happening in the Superior Court and circumstances that we think that it's important that you are aware of.
Volume is down, or we cannot hear very clearly.
Would you like me to start again?
If you don't mind.
I don't mind at all.
Okay, thank you.
First of all, Madam Chair, thank you for having me this evening. I very much appreciate this opportunity to speak to you and to the other commissioners on things that are of importance to the Superior Court. I'm just going to take a very few minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, to go over a couple of key points. But the first thing that I want to do is just say a little bit about where we are and what we do. The Superior Court is located in the old courthouse on the square in McDonough. Construction of this courthouse occurred during the late 1800s and was completed in 1897. The courthouse has been in continuous operation there since that time. Superior Court is a court of general jurisdiction. It is a place where most people are aware that we handle major felony cases. And there we handle murder cases and rape cases, child molestation, kidnapping, armed robbery, all cases that are punishable by more than a year in the state penitentiary are handled in Superior Court. We also, in addition to handling criminal cases of that nature, have exclusive jurisdiction over divorce and custody. We have exclusive jurisdiction over disputes as to land and equity cases. We hear business cases of a wide variety and hear money damage claims with unlimited amounts in controversy. We are the highest trial court in the state of Georgia, and each of the judges on the Superior Court is a constitutional officer. Henry County has 3 Superior Court judges. I'm the most senior. I'm in my 4th term, my 13th year in office. I was first elected in 2006. We also have Judge Trey Pipkin, who was appointed by Governor Deal and sworn into office on January the 9th of 2018. Finally, our most recent addition is Judge Holly Veal, who was appointed by Governor Deal and sworn in on November the 7th of 2018. And though Judge Pipkin and Judge Veal are relatively new to the bench, they've had to hit the ground running. And here's why. The Judicial Council's Workload Assessment Committee has recently determined that the 3 of us are doing the work of 4 Superior Court judges. They have determined that we are the 3rd busiest Superior Court in the state of Georgia, with each of us doing the work of 1.43 judges, which of course is not sustainable long term. As a result, part of the reason that I'm here is to ask you for your support as we move forward and request that the Judicial Council consider supporting a 4th judge request. We believe that we need a 4th judge. We believe that we've needed it for a long time. The Workload Assessment Committee of the Judicial Council's numbers clearly support that conclusion. And so, as we move forward and make that request in March, hopefully we'll be in the top 2 or 3 in the state, and we will be able to make a presentation not only to you at that point, asking for further support, but also hopefully be in a position where we can ask the local delegation at the legislature, at the General Assembly, to support this request for a 4th judgeship. Now, when I talk in terms of a 4th judgeship, I think it's very important that all of you, and I know that most of you understand this, but also that the public at large understands, that we're not talking about just adding 1 person. I had a non-jury criminal calendar today where I heard a lot of the cases that I've described on the criminal docket that we routinely hear. And I had 2 or 3 prosecutors in the courtroom at any given time. I had 2 or 3 public defenders in the courtroom at any given time, in addition to the private attorneys who are representing criminal defendants. We have sheriff's deputies. We have staff that works with the district attorney's office, staff that works with the public defender's office, investigators that work with the public defender's office, investigators that work with the district attorney's office. All of these people are needed just on the criminal calendar in a Superior Court courtroom to support another judge and another judge's work. And so what we're looking at is adding at least another 8 to 10 people, a couple of whom would be state paid, but the majority of whom would be county paid. And so this is part of the reason that I bring all of this to your attention. This is a very big undertaking, adding a 4th judge. And when we add all of these people to the system, we also need space for them. We need space for them to work outside of the courtroom, to work up their files, the files that they bring into the courtroom, and prosecute or defend. We'll need an increase in guardian ad litem resources for the divorce and custody cases. So there is a huge influx of resources that are needed in order to support this fourth judgeship. And all of this is on the horizon. And it's likely to be a budget event, not for this year, but for fiscal year 21 and 22. Nevertheless, because of the size of this issue, I wanted to make sure that I brought it to your attention and ask for you to help us in moving this judicial system forward, this criminal justice system. Because as the county grows and expands, as our case count continues to go up, the challenges, both in terms of the resources available to us as people, but also the resources available to us from a physical structure standpoint, continue to be challenged, and we are in desperate need of an expanded space to accommodate these people, desperate need for either an addition to the Superior Courthouse, to a new building, before a new building, one or both. And let me just say that I am so grateful to Sherry Matthews and to Brad Johnson for their willingness to meet with the Superior Court judges privately to address these needs with us. And it looks to me as though later in today's agenda that they intend to present some proposals for how we can manage this growth and change. And whether that is the direction that this board goes in or whether it's a different direction, all I can say is that we are grateful for the fact that you are seriously looking at these issues with us, and we hope that we continue to have a good relationship as we move forward in both developing the case for the fourth judgeship and also in moving toward expanding our facilities. Thank you.
Before you leave, are there any questions from the board to the judge? No questions. Go ahead. Commissioner Thomas?
No question, Judge Amir, and we do appreciate the work that you do for this county. I have to say, being new to this DS, one of the first things that Commissioner Clemens has been championing is a judicial center. I think if she can engrave it on my hand, she will put it on my hand engraved. So I want you to know that your words tonight is not going on deaf ears. We know that you need more space, and we know that you need more people to work with. We'll be meeting with you to talk with you about some of those needs.
Commissioner Thomas, it's really gratifying for me to hear that from you. Thank you so much for those comments. I know that in talking to Commissioner Clemens, as well as all of the other commissioners about this matter, there is an appreciation and an understanding that this growth is coming, that we need these resources, that we need to expand our facilities, and we are grateful, very much grateful, that you are all engaging fully in this discussion with us. So thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments from the board? Commissioner Clemens?
Yes, and I would just like to say again, we've been talking as a board, but our growth has outpaced the facilities in Henry County. And it's not just the court system. Of course, the court system is priority, but just every facility. I mean, I don't think there's a year that has gone by that I've not set up here that we're talking about patchwork, and with the growth is just, and now it's becoming a security issue. So the reason that I'm so concerned about the Judicial Center, because you do have some security issues, and you didn't talk a lot about that tonight, and I don't want to put you on the spot to talk about that, but the space, the human physical resources that you need, but the security issue is a huge issue as well. So that's the main concern.
Well, I will just say in response, if I'm allowed, would it be all right if I say something about that?
Yeah.
We've had some cases recently that have really tested the ability of the Sheriff's Department to keep us safe, and not just to keep the judges safe and the people in the courthouse safe, but to keep the public safe in the square and in the parking lots and in the areas around the building, our jurors, for example. Just today, I had 3 people on my calendar who were either charged with murder or who had been convicted of murder. 10 years ago, it was unusual to have a non-jury criminal calendar where you had 3 people on it who were in that situation. But now it's unfortunately a bit more common. And you can see with crime of that nature, security becomes a greater concern. And so again, I'm 100% in agreement with you, Commissioner Clemens, in your assessment that we have a need for additional security.
Any other questions or comments? And I know I've got one as well. Well, I do appreciate what is happening with our judicial Flint circuit, definitely. And I also want the audience and the public to know that, again, we appreciate what is happening with now the Veterans Court, the accountability courts, and even now this big focus on mental health as well. So again, appreciate the communication that you have, thinking ahead as well as we continue to move forward. Do want to continue to hear more from our staff as well, not regarding just the capital assets of it, but how this is going to impact the general fund going forward. So those are conversations that we will continue to have, but we appreciate you bringing all of this forward to us this evening.
And one last thing, if I can say, I greatly appreciate Judge Veal and Judge Pipkin, the way that they have stepped in and as hard as they're working. They've not only taken on their new duties, handling hundreds of civil and criminal cases, but they're also taking on these accountability courts. Judge Veal immediately gravitated toward the drug court, has taken over that responsibility from me. I presided over that court for the better part of 10 years, and Judge Pipkin is doing an excellent job in the Veterans Court that was established as a result of the support of this commission. And so that's all I'll say. Again, thank you for your time. I know you have plenty to do tonight.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Judge. All right, well, we now will move into our District 2 board appointments. We have in District 2 for Connecting Henry, 2 new appointments, Ms. Daisy Thiene and Ms. Mackenzie McDaniel, and their terms will expire on December 31st of 2020. So we are bringing forth these board appointments. We now request a motion for approval.
Move to approve.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Are there any discussions or comments? All in favor? Thank you. The appointments are unanimously approved. We're now moving to our consent agenda, and these items will be considered unless the board requests them to be removed for further discussions onto the regular agenda. The first one we have is from Juvenile Court, which is a resolution allowing the Juvenile Court to apply for a grant from the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council to continue the coordination of our Juvenile Mental Health Court in FY20. We have a resolution from the Henry County Fire Department, which is a resolution to accept a donation of $75 from Total Tree Solutions Incorporated and $400 from United Bank for funding of firefighter awards and banquet with the approval of the budget amendment. And then we have a resolution from the Transit authorizing to process an application for transportation services provided to elderly and disabled individuals through the Georgia Department of Human Services. And then the other agenda is regarding SPLOST, regarding a resolution approving the Central Georgia EMC utility relocation costs for South Cleveland Church Road in District 2. Are there any of these items that the board wishes to remove from the consent agenda for further discussion? Hearing none, the floor is now open to approve the consent agenda as read.
Move to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussions or questions or comments? All in favor? Thank you. The consent agenda is approved. Item 8A from Parks and Recreation was tabled, so we'll now move into item 9 from Technology Services regarding a resolution to approve a budget amendment in the amount of $654,648 and increase the Technology Services repairs and maintenance account. And we thank Mr. Floyd for making that presentation this evening.
Good evening, Chair, board members.
Good evening.
Before you is a resolution to approve the budget amendment for Technology Services Repair and Maintenance account. Back in October, we purchased a new server that was our disaster recovery server and our main server for the county that was in desperate need of replacement and repair. It's become a security risk. It was coming out of warranty. We had to move this server off of the existing server by the end of January of this year. So we purchased it, had it approved back in October of 2018. So now we need to get the money back into our account so we can continue paying bills. We also purchased some training equipment for the Tyler and ERP public safety projects so we would not delay those projects, and that was $159,547. The server purchase was $495,100, and total of budget amendment was $654,648. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Okay, we've heard the presentation. Are there any questions? Okay. Hearing none, the floor is now open for a motion. We have a motion to approve.
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. We will now move into our next agenda item. Again, the stormwater item was tabled for further information, so we'll move now into our planning and zoning items, which will begin with a public hearing regarding a countywide amendment to the comprehensive plan to clarify land uses supported by the future land use map, and we thank Mr. Stacy Jordan Rudisill for the presentation.
Good evening, Madam Chair,
Good
Commissioners.
evening.
The item before you tonight is basically a cleanup of our comprehensive plan. On the overhead, there are what we've proposed to be new pages 88 and 89 from the comprehensive plan. The original pages actually was missing some of the graphics and the language that goes into the definitions of these areas for rural areas and for suburban areas. Also, the compatibility chart for land uses and land use designations for zoning districts. This is from page 96 of the comprehensive plan. This is just a bit different than what's in your exhibits because we had used a previous iteration of the existing table for your exhibits, so this is more accurate. The table at the top is the existing, the table at the bottom is the recommended. The recommended modification that we have is to add all of the zoning districts within the mixed use land use category and to add all of the zoning districts within the public and institutional land use category, which ends up being most of our schools. In addition to these pages from the comprehensive plan, we're also recommending a cleanup of the future land use map. There is a table, actually there's a page and a half table of the different changes that we're recommending. We do have a couple of additions. We're proposing a land use map change for the intersection of Highway 81 and Snapping Shoals Road on one side and Jackson Lake Road on the other. One of those corners is owned by the Water Authority and is showing as transportation, communication, and utilities. Another corner is showing as commercial, which we feel is appropriate. A corner that's not included in commercial was actually zoned to commercial in the past year, and the fourth corner is similarly situated, so we're recommending a change in the future land use map to show commercial on these corners. The other change that we're proposing that's different than your exhibits is at the southeast corner of Willow Lane and Bridges Road, which is just to the north of our location here. That property was zoned in 2015, 7 acres. It was rezoned to C2. It was showing as residential on our current future land use map, so we're recommending a change in that. In your exhibits, we were recommending a change to mixed use, but we feel that commercial is more appropriate. And I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
We've heard the presentation. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, the floor is now open for a motion.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve.
Second.
Public hearing.
You know, and I just realized that this is a public hearing, so thank you. All right, so this is a public hearing, so we thank you for the presentation, and we'll begin the public hearing aspect of it. And by that means that anyone wishing to speak in favor of it will be granted a total of 10 minutes collectively to come and speak, and anyone wishing to speak in opposition will be given a total of 10 minutes. So at this time, we're going to ask for anyone wishing to speak in favor to please come forward now. And as you do, to please state your name, please. Again, anyone wishing to speak in favor to please come forward now. Okay, at this time, we'll now ask for anyone who's wishing to speak in opposition of this to please come forward now. And again, there will be a collective of 10 minutes, so if there are others that would like to join this gentleman, please stand now so that we can recognize you so that the time can be allocated appropriately. Great, good evening.
Good evening, Board of Commissioners. My name is Clayton Cart. I reside on South Bethany Road in Locust Grove. Before I begin my remarks, I first want to just give a general thank you to our planning staff. I know they work very hard on this comp plan. I worked firsthand with many of them as a stakeholder within this comprehensive plan update, and I know day to day it is a hard task, often a thankless task. But tonight I want to specifically talk about the compatibility chart. And so I'll put a copy of it with some highlights on the overhead. I want to specifically draw your attention to our mixed-use flume category. This was brand new in the new comprehensive plan. It was a key part of our update because we want to attract quality mixed use to Henry County. I specifically want to draw your attention to the industrial zoning districts, M1 and M2. Staff have proposed to include all zoning districts within mixed use, including M1 and M2. Many jurisdictions, including Henry County, under our mixed use zoning district, do not allow industrial uses within mixed use development. As many of the community know, I run a Facebook page about our transportation and land use. I utilize that platform to ask residents in a survey question, in their viewpoint as residents, do they consider industrial to be applicable within mixed use? Out of just shy of 500 respondents, 93% have said no. 93% have said mixed use does not include industrial. They reference that it should be residential and commercial only. In dialogue I have with residents, as I'm sure many of you have with residents, the industrial section and the industrial growth has been a source of frustration for quite a few residents, and I would not want to see this county risk opening the door for additional industrial development within our mixed use categories. When we speak of mixed use, we should shoot for quality residential living and quality commercial, not more warehouses. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to please come forward now. Again, anyone wishing to speak in opposition, please come forward now. Okay, that ends now our public hearing. So at this time, are there any questions or comments from the board? Commissioner Clements.
I have a question for Stacy. Is this, I see that you got, now I know there's been some inconsistencies with the future land use map, because I've seen a couple of them that have been in District 2. Is this comprehensive plan change saying that industrial will be allowed in mixed use development?
Right, so what that compatibility chart says is which of the zoning districts will actually be supported by which land use category. And so what we're recommending is that every zoning district be supported by the mixed use land use category. Now let me just state that under our Unified Land Development Code, there are two different zoning districts that are described as mixed use. They're the actual mixed use zoning district and the IAC zoning district, which stands for Interchange Activity Center. The Interchange Activity Center zoning district already allows M1 and M2 industrial uses, so we didn't feel like it was inconsistent in recommending that this compatibility chart be changed to include M1 and M2 zoning districts under the mixed use land use category.
So if we already have a area that's mixed use, are you stating that if someone wanted to come and do industrial in that area, then it would be permitted?
It would be, what we're recommending is that it be supported by the future land use map.
If I could chime in just very briefly, Stacy, would you, for the record, state what our official definition of mixed use is, just so that we can give the Board of Commissioners the full scope of why industrial is supported by mixed use?
Yes. Yes, sir, I'll be pleased to do that.
So while she's doing it, I have a question. So if we leave it like it is now, and someone wanted industrial in the area, they would just have to get come to the Board of Commissioners to get that approved, right?
They would still have to go through a rezoning process if the property is not already zoned industrial.
But if we do this tonight, then they don't have to come to us, it's just permitted.
No, that's not, no, what this is just the policy guide. This will give staff guidance as to what recommendations we can bring to you. It's
Yep.
still ultimately the board's decision as to whether or not the zoning is approved or denied.
So, Madam Chair, the definition that Dante had mentioned says that this district is intended to provide locations for office, institutional, personal service, single-family, duplex, cluster housing, and multifamily residential uses, accessory uses or structures, and essential public services. Lots and parcels may be used for single use or may contain a mixture of uses within a single development site. This district is intended to allow the flexibility of development standards. Accessory uses and structures and essential public services are permissible. So that's the description of our mixed-use zoning district.
And what's the description of the industrial?
So for the IAC, it says this district is intended to provide locations at the intersection of two major arterials or at interstate interchanges to accommodate transient shopping, lodging, and hospitality uses, and to provide locations with the highest level of access to meet the needs for product distribution. This district is intended as a mixed-use development. The following types of uses are permissible: multifamily residential, regional commercial, lodging, regional services, and essential public services. Uses may be combined within a development project in this district.
So this opens up the potential for residential and warehouses in the same area. All right,
Yes, and that the IAC zoning district is for that purpose.
okay.
And I had some similar questions, but it was regarding residential agriculture with mixed use. So I would ask Dante if you can kind of explain again what you explained to me in that conversation, because I thought, yes, we can read through the definition, but we were trying to interpret exactly what we're doing as well to educate us.
Sure. I would like to probably respond to that with a question. If a developer comes in and asks to place an assisted living facility on a piece of property, my question would be, what zoning does permit that? RA zoning. All right, well, what special permit is required for that conditional use? Well, let's say they wanted to provide some type of grocer to accommodate the assisted living facility, or to be kind of a secondary use to that, to provide a mixture of uses. Well, the RA zoning district will allow for the assisted living. The commercial zoning district will allow for the grocer or what have you. The mixed use, future land use will support the mixture of uses. If they decide to rezone it to mixed use, then both of those uses that I just stated will be allowed on that piece of property.
But why are we bringing industrial in?
It's just to better fit our technical term in our ULDC.
Okay, are there any other questions from the board?
I can't see what Dan
Commissioner Thomas?
asking us to do. As Commissioner Clemens has said, why do we add the part industrial in there? And we're trying to make sure we target not only industrial, but another classification of companies. And why are we making it easier for them to get to us in any type of industrial capacity? This makes it easier to me for them to get in and may not have to come through us.
So the purpose of this chart is largely for staff to determine if an applicant would have to request a change to the comprehensive plan future land use map in addition to a rezoning request. So what you're describing is right, in that it makes it easier for an applicant because they only have to request a rezoning, which this board would consider and approve or deny, as opposed to having to request both. But the chart today, it only supports mixed use or IAC rezoning requests in that mixed use land use district. What we're proposing is that any zoning district would be supported by that mixed use zoning district, because the components of any zoning district would be included in a mixed use or an IAC.
I
Including
think if we
industrial.
need this much clarification to go forth on it, then applicants would need the same type of clarification because it is confusing.
And this is our policy guide. They would still need to make the appropriate applications to come before this board.
All right, any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, we've heard the presentation, we've gone through the public hearing. The floor is now open for a motion. Hearing none, the floor is now open for a motion. Hearing none, it fails.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Okay, we will now move to the next planning and zoning item, which is a public hearing. RZ 1818, and this is in District 3, is the Reservoir Group of Watkinsville is requesting a rezoning from RA to RM, which is residential agriculture, to multifamily residential for property located on the south side of Mount Carmel Road. And we invite up Ms. Nieves for the presentation. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. The applicant is requesting to rezone the property located on the south side of Mount Carmel Road, which is highlighted in green in your exhibit books and on the overhead screen, from RA, residential agricultural, to RM, multifamily residential, for the development of a 270-unit multifamily residential development. The subject property has a future land use designation of high-density residential, which allows for a density of up to 16 dwelling units per net acre, which supports the applicant's request. There is precedence in the area for multifamily residential developments, as there is an existing multifamily development directly to the south of the subject property. On November 8th, 2018, staff took to the Zoning Advisory Board a recommendation of approval with 9 conditions due to the request being supported by the future land use designation. The Zoning Advisory Board recommended approval with 2 additional conditions concerning the proportion of apartments which would be allocated for 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms, as well as the provision of emergency breakaway access to the site. And I will now place these conditions on the screen. I'd be happy to take any questions you have. Thank you.
All right, are there any questions before we begin the public hearing aspect?
I don't have any at this time.
Okay. All right, well, we'll enter into the public hearing aspect, and so at this time, if there's anyone wishing to speak in favor of this zoning matter, including the applicant, if you would please come forward. The collective group will have a total of 10 minutes, and likewise, anyone wishing to speak in opposition will have 10 minutes collectively as well. So good evening, if you'll state your name, please.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Steve Moore with Moore Bass Consulting, 1350 Keys Ferry Court, McDonough, Georgia, representing the Reservoir Group in the application before you this evening. I've got just an additional site plan that I'll provide. So again, thank you for the opportunity to tell you about this project. As Yuritsa said, we're located at on the south side of Mount Carmel Road, just west of Willow Lane. We back up to the John Deere landscape to the west, I guess, and then multifamily on the other side. As you can see from this layout, we are proposing our primary access to Mount Carmel Road. It's a gated access and dead ends into a roundabout where the clubhouse and swimming pool area will be situated. As a result of the Zoning Advisory Board, we did also add an additional secondary emergency access with a Knox box style locking system that is located generally in this vicinity right here. The multifamily buildings and the parking are generally proposed as shown here, and you'll also notice there's two large village green areas here and here. Those areas will contain a majority of the amenities that are proposed within the project. There'll be a clubhouse, a fitness center, junior Olympic-sized swimming pool, a pedestrian paths, a community fire pit and grilling area, as well as picnic areas and a dog park. So those will be located in those large green areas between the buildings. The architecture for this project is a little unique, and I want to just show you some pictures of the proposed units. Maybe I can get both of these on here. So this architectural style that we're proposing is referred to by the architect as the big house. It is a trademark design concept that the project architect developed several years ago. It's been incorporated, I think, in hundreds of projects, more than 200 projects across the United States. But it's a unique design. These houses, or these units, these residential units, are intentionally designed to appear as a large house, a big house. Each unit has a walkout balcony or patio, and has direct access to a private attached garage. Each unit has access to its own private attached garage, interior access to the garage. The units are 2 stories. It's unlike traditional garden apartments where several are up to 3 and 4 stories. These are limited to 2 units, or to 2 stories rather. And the second floor units are accessed by a private enclosed walkway, stairway to their units. There's no central breezeways or common areas like you would have in your traditional garden style apartments. These are really intended to be more intimate, kind of self-contained units. Each building group that was shown on the site plan contains 10 residential units and 12 garages. So there's at a minimum of 1 garage per unit with 2 extra garages that could be rented for another vehicle or storage or whatever the tenant wanted. But we think it's a unique idea. It's going to be, I think, well received in the community, and architecturally will look very nice and different than your traditional garden style apartments. We have read the staff recommendation, the proposed zoning resolution, and as Yuritsa said, we did receive unanimous approval from the Zoning Advisory Board. We believe we've complied with their additional recommendations. We have no objections to the conditions that have been communicated to us, and at this point, I'm happy to answer any additional questions you might have.
This is a public hearing, so we'll bring you back afterwards.
Absolutely.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this proposal? Again, anyone wishing to speak in favor, please come forward. So at this time now, we'll allow 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in opposition. Please come forward now.
Bill Tony, McDonough, Georgia. You just had a judge up here telling you that the infrastructure and the legal part can't take it. They're already booked out as far as they can go. We've got traffic coming out our ears, and if I'm not mistaken, you said 280? 270. 270 families moving into 27 acres. This is crazy. This right here is in my district, and when the gentleman said that it was well received, I don't receive this at all. I think this is a big mistake, and I think you should vote no on this. We don't need it right now. Need it maybe later, but right now our infrastructure can't take this kind of stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition, to please come forward. Good evening.
Michael Barnes in the city of McDonough. Can you take those sheets off so we can see those? Where was the original rules that were listed, the requirements? Thank you very much. So I have a very simple question. why would the zoning be approved prior to the traffic impact study being conducted? If you're going to do a traffic impact study, you should approve the zoning afterwards so that you know what requirements you would have the builder do to satisfy what comes out of the traffic impact study. I think we're kind of putting the cart before the horse here. We should do the study first, then make the requirements to the developer, then provide the zoning approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition, to please come forward now. Again, anyone wishing to speak in opposition, to please come forward now. Thank you. Well, this concludes our public hearing. We invite the applicant back up, and of course there was a question that was asked about the zoning being approved prior to the traffic study. If someone from staff can help respond to that. Okay.
Would you like me to answer, Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
For traffic impact studies, the norm is for them to be required as a condition. So even if they do receive the zoning, they cannot proceed with development until that traffic study has been done. And condition 2, all of the indicated developments or improvements of that traffic impact study have to be implemented before they can proceed with the development.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any questions or comments from the board at this time? Commissioner Barham?
Yes, Steve. I heard that the original number that I had was 275 on the original request instead of 270. Is that
Yes,
correct?
I think 275 was the number the correct number. Yes, sir.
Okay. And I just got a couple questions. Is any of these units government subsidized?
No, sir. Not at all.
Okay. Can you give me the price point for the 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedrooms?
Yes, sir. We've got a range of rental rates of $1,200 to $1,360 for the 1 bedroom per month, $1,450 to $1,600 for the 2 bedroom, and $1,600 to $1,800 a month for the 3 bedroom. And we think those numbers actually, based on market studies, are going up just based on the fact that a majority of the similar units are at max capacity and there's a demand for this type of product.
How many units are going to be ADA compliant?
It's going to depend on a little bit on the local, state, and federal ADA requirements and building code requirements. We think right now it's going to be between 2 and 5% of the total units would be dedicated to ADA, to be ADA accessible, but certainly would meet whatever those the building code requirements. But that's the range we think it's going to be in right now. The architect's working through the details right now on that.
Okay, that's all I have right now.
Okay, any other? Okay, Commissioner Clemens.
I have a question. Can you tell me some of the things, staff, that the impact study, the traffic impact study would reveal?
Normally, to the best of my knowledge, normally they would be things regarding the road and access. So improvements along Mount Carmel and access in and out of the site, be it deceleration, acceleration, U-turn requirements, stop lights, traffic lights, stop signs, things of that nature.
Okay. Is there anything else, Dante, that they would add in that?
Sometimes they add, if there's a school in the area, they'll add a study that just show if there's a need for a crosswalk or some type of access or pedestrian access to the school. But your Rich is accurate.
Right. And so could the language read that the results of the impact study will be completed prior to, or something like that?
Right. The way the condition is currently written, it has to be completed before anything moves forward.
Which one of them says that?
Number 1.
It says it will be required.
Will be required, correct. So they will have to show the county that they have completed a traffic study before they move to the development plan review stage.
It goes on to say that any of the indicated improvements will be required of the developer / owner.
And let me tell you my issue with that, written that way, because we always put that in, like it'll say that a road needs to be done, and then the developer knows that he has to do the road, but there's no time frame in which they have to do it. So they can build the projects and everything, so, you know, it really doesn't say when they have to do it.
They would have to show that on the plans before the plans are approved.
Yep.
So if it's shown on the plans and the way these conditions are written, those conditions have to be shown. If not, they'll be redlined until they're shown. If they're shown on the plans and they meet these requirements, that's what has to be put on the ground. That's what the permit will allow. And that's what the inspectors will go out and inspect to make sure they're implemented.
Okay. Any other questions, Commissioner Combs? Okay, any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, hearing none, the floor is now open for a motion.
Chairwood, I'm going to change a little bit on the conditions for the number of units. And also, I'm going to make a motion that we approve this zoning from RA to RM multifamily with the following conditions and the additional conditions I added to it. Number one, a traffic impact study will be required. Number two, all of the indicated improvements will be required of the developer. These improvements may require a left turn lane at the site access point, among other possible improvements. Number three, deceleration lanes, acceleration tapers shall be provided at the site access point, designed and constructed to the Henry County DOT standards. Number four, all building constructions on the property shall be constructed of brick, stone, stucco, cement, fiberboard, or any combination thereof. Number five, an amenity package which includes at least three of the following: tennis courts, junior Olympic-sized swimming pool, clubhouse, activity center, children's playground, pedestrian paths, dog park, or fitness facilities shall be provided and maintained by the owner's expense. Number six, the property shall be developed as a gated community. The gate shall be maintained and monitored at the property's owner's expense. Number seven, a minimum of 5-foot sidewalk shall be constructed along the frontage of the property along Mount Carmel Road. Number eight, a minimum 10-foot wide landscape strip shall be installed along the sidewalk along Mount Carmel Road to include street trees spaced at a minimum average spacing of 20 feet on center. Number nine, pedestrian lights shall be installed alongside the sidewalks along Mount Carmel Road at the spacing which ensures sufficient light coverage. Number 10, and this is the one I revised, 3-bedroom units shall be limited to 10% of the total unit count, with the balance being comprised of 45% 1-bedroom and 45% being 2-bedroom units. Number 5 and number 11, the developer shall provide emergency breakaway access to the site subject to Henry County safety approval. Number 12, a 25-foot perimeter bumper shall be provided along all property lines except for locations of access and utility connection. Said buffer to provide visual screen from adjacent properties. If natural vegetation is sufficient for screening, the applicant shall install landscape as necessary to provide the visual screening desired. Number 13, fencing shall be installed along the perimeter of the site with the exception of the frontage of Mount Carmel Road. Fencing along the property frontage shall consist of brick, stone columns with decorative fencing and landscaping. Number 14, the total number of units shall be limited to 230 units. That's it.
Okay, all right, we've heard a motion with the conditions noted and the revisions that were added by Commissioner Barham. Is there a second? Second. We have a second. Is there any further comments of discussion? All in favor with those amendments to the and conditions to the agenda, please vote in favor. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Passes. Thank you. We'll now move to the next public hearing, which is located in District 5, and it is ESS Properties requesting a modification to zoning conditions for property located at 5484 Flakes Mill Road. And we again welcome Mr. Stacy Jordan Rudisill up for that presentation.
Good evening, Madam Chair.
Good evening again.
Commissioners. request before you tonight is on the east side of Flakes Mill Road, just north of the intersection with Panola Road. This is the aerial shot of the subject property. Subject property is Zone C3, which is highway commercial, which allows for a self-storage unit. And it was zoned back in 1996 for this express purpose. Future land use map designates the subject property for low-density residential uses. The applicant is requesting to eliminate condition number 3, which is listed in the staff report, which is in your exhibit books. This condition reads office development to the front, many warehouses to the rear. Staff is actually recommending denial of that request, but a rewording. So if it's the pleasure of the board to change this condition, we would recommend that it reads self-storage that is replacing office space shall be interior or indoor storage designed to mirror Class A commercial office space. And I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Okay, are there any questions from the board before we begin the public hearing? Okay, hearing none, we'll begin the public hearing. All those wishing to speak in favor, including any property owners, to please come forward. Again, a total of 10 minutes will be granted, and then likewise 10 minutes will be granted to those in opposition. Good evening, and please state your name for the records.
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners. Thank you. My name is Daniel Gimberg. I work for Stein Investment Company. We are a local real estate company that specializes in self-storage. We've developed over 3 million square feet. I'm here on behalf of the owner, Extra Space. The condition that Stacy just read is acceptable to us. I'd just like to reiterate and clarify that all units that will be converted from the office space that's there today will be interior access only, and the majority of the renovation will be to the interior with some improvements to the facade as well. So keeping it short, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We will continue the public hearing. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor to please come forward? Again, anyone wishing to speak in favor to please come forward. At this time now, anyone wishing to speak in opposition, if you would please come forward at this time. Again, anyone wishing to speak in opposition to please come forward. Seeing none, hearing none, that concludes our public hearing. So at this time, we'll open the floor to the board for any questions or comments or discussion items. I'm sorry. Okay, no comment. Okay, so now the floor is now open for a motion.
I'm going to move to deny the request.
Okay, we have a motion to deny.
Second.
And a second. Any further discussions or comments? All in favor of denial? Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, that concludes our public hearings this evening. We'll now move into item 12 from the county manager team, and this is regarding a resolution to approve capital project improvement plans list and authorizing requests for proposals for funding services. So
Good evening, Madam Chair,
Good
Commissioners.
evening.
Thank you this afternoon. This is, I guess, the fourth part of our capital improvement plan. Tonight's goal is to, we've discussed the list over and over and heard you well. What's our next steps? Our next step is develop a plan to move forward. And that plan, we want to work with Davenport for that consideration. I must reiterate what the judge mentioned earlier is that we do have an outdated, overutilized old court building that it does require a lot of maintenance. We've been visiting lately, and it does, again, need some attention, as he mentioned earlier. We took categories together from our capital improvement list and combined them to give some direction to Davenport and our financial team of how to move forward. And from that point, they will get permission tonight, I guess is what we're asking for with the RFP, is to allow Davenport to move forward with recommendations on how to get from A to Z. I put together some project categories that we've heard from you guys over the last few years, or last year, of how to do that. We have some immediate concerns repair and maintenance. We have some immediate vehicle concerns, technology, courts, jail pod, convention arena, amphitheater. And our goal now is to have an RFP go out by Davenport to come back with a plan of action of how we mitigate these issues, how we move forward, how we move Henry County forward. Tonight we can actually, if you guys want to change something there, we'll definitely hear it. But we really want to give Davenport the permission to move forward, solicit RFPs to see what opportunities we have to move Henry County.
Okay, we've heard the presentation. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Commissioner Clemens?
This has been a long time coming, Brad. Good job, you guys finally got it right. And not as if you weren't gonna get it right, but all this patchwork that we've been doing in this county, and I think that when people decide to move to a county, they wanna see that the county is growing, that there's new stuff happening in the county, and this will definitely put us where we need to be. I like that the politics of where the courthouse building is gonna go is not even a question tonight. We need to fund it.
Funding.
And so I'm super excited that we have an opportunity to support our jail pod. I know the sheriff is busting out of the seams over there. Everything looks good, and you guys have done a good job. This is finally, I know we've always talked about it.
Commissioner, the court area, if you noticed from our past discussion, our last workshop, there was an increase back on the judicial study, went back and pulled it out, and using them guidelines and seeing how we can move forward. So we did increase that a little bit.
I think the courthouse is probably 10 million less than what they presented to us, because we had a presentation. I thought it was like 70 million.
It was not. I went back and checked the documents. There was two separate categories, and the categories was a split plan or an add-on plan. This is using the add-on for a new facility.
This is, the new facility was 60 million?
It was a little less than that, but it's actually splitting the courts up. If we get the funding can be used, allocated then, and we feel that we can work with the court system to get adequate. If we need to adjust through the bond council at that time, we can do that.
Because we don't want to keep the outdated model of having courts all over the place.
Well, I made some notes when the judge was talking. He mentioned security. We have 9 different court facilities at this time, different locations. It is a security, public safety nightmare when it comes to that facility, not just all of our facilities, and keeping track of that. So in today's time, you see it on the news every day, we do not want to be a statistics in Henry County. We want to be proactive and get the right things done.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments from the board?
Another thing is the convention center. That's a guesstimate. We do want to make sure that feasibility studies that tell us what we need and how that's done. So that was a rough guesstimate also.
But the feasibility studies included?
Yes, the feasibility studies included in the very first part, whereas our immediate needs to get that immediate process started.
That's good.
All right, good deal.
And if you have questions, the Davenport representative is here tonight. If you have some questions, he's got some that he can answer for you. Are you good?
I think we're finally giving him something to do his job now.
That's right.
Just a couple of comments as well. Will you clarify the maintenance and repair? I know it speaks generally, but the other things is I'm really glad to see that there is funding for sidewalks, because that's definitely part of public safety that needs to be addressed. And again, I hope it's definitely in those high traffic areas, which I know you all have looked at. And the other thing is that we've got to be much more aggressive with our technology. So I'm glad,
exactly right.
We brought that up in the workshop. We want to definitely bring more professional services, small business support. That technology has got to be addressed. And again, regarding our judicial improvements, I agree we need to do that. Now, one of the things I know that I asked about during the workshop too was I'm glad to see that we're not just patching anymore, as what Commissioner Clemens has just stated, because we can spend more time patching, and then again, we've got to think about the work conditions of those that are working within the facilities as well, in addition to our public that is coming into these facilities. So I think that is good. Then my last comment is I'm glad you brought up that we've got to get that feasibility study.
Yes, ma'am.
Because that is critical for several discussions. So I'm really glad to hear that as a priority as well. So Commissioner Holmes, and then we'll come to Commissioner Barr.
I know that we will be looking forward to doing a feasibility study for the convention center and arena, but I do think that estimate should be a lot higher than the 60 million. We should estimate it at least 90 million.
Yes, sir. We'll put that on there and put a consultant so he does his RFP.
So make sure that's part of the resolution.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Commissioner Barr.
Yes, Brad, in regards to the amphitheater, I see $10 million there. I mean, what kind of amphitheater are we talking about?
That was the ballpark. We pulled figures from studies from different ones from the Peachtree City. We pulled the one from South Fulton, Gwinnett, the Cobb model today, and looked at different ones. There's a range. It might be determined when this comes back that the board says we want not to do that. We want a different variety. So we'll bring back options. Right now, the goal is to see what's out there, what is our capacity in funding this, and then moving forward with a project.
I would like for y'all to look at Verizon Wireless.
Yes, sir.
On the north side of Atlanta. I mean, you know, we could attract people from Macon, Atlanta, and we got a
Commissioner, we did look at the Verizon Wireless today.
You know, and I would like to see us consider doing some kind of public-private partnership.
Sure.
Luxottica or some of these warehouses, bringing some of these people in to help us do some of these projects.
We're definitely in the market for looking at the private partnerships with all of our community, and especially these big projects here. When we put this on the screen, it don't mean we want to encumber all this in Henry County. We want to look at outside participation, outside meaning other partners we have in our community to make Henry County better than it already is.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, well, hearing none, the floor is now open for a motion.
I'll motion to approve with the estimated costs of the convention center at 90 million versus 60.
Okay, we've got a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Is there further questions or comments or discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move into our next item, which is our public comment section, and this is the opportunity that we welcome citizens to come and voice their county-related concerns. They are requested to actually sign in with their clerk prior to the board meeting, and then each person wishing to speak will be granted 5 minutes. So do we have any public comments for this evening?
We have 3 tonight, Larry Morey, Bill Toney, and Marquise.
Okay, great. Well, we welcome you to please come forward. Thank you.
My name is Larry Morey. I'd like to read a little verse in Matthew, the 23rd chapter, the 28th verse. Even so, ye also outwardly appear righteous unto men, but within ye are full of hypocrisy and iniquity. You know, a few years ago, I stood up in the community I grew up in, and a local banker come to me. And he said, Larry, you just don't understand. And I said, Judge, surely I understand. I've been a commissioner in your county back in the 80s, and I suggested something to you then. And if you go to Mitchell County today, he's no longer owns his bank. And the city has been in national headlines in total disarray. The people are against the mayor, and the mayor's against the people. And when this little hurricane got through with them last year, it's just about a war zone in that county. It's a sad, sad situation. You know, a lot of us have come to love Henry County. We've been here a long time. And it's a sad day. And I'm going to share a few things with you. You know, if you go out here and go down 81 and you go just before you go over the overpass, over the railroad track, you turn left. They just paved that road into the hill section of McDonough. Should have been done a long time ago. But they resurfaced the road. But then right there before it dumps onto 81, they have allowed a truck parking terminal. 111 trucks in there this week at one time. They've literally tore the road up coming in and out. What good does it do to resurface the road into the hill section of old McDonough, that people that need to get in and out. And you need to get across that railroad track. But now we put 100-plus trucks coming in and out of that two-lane intersection. It's just going to, but let's get past that. We said couple of weeks ago, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Well, I'm fixing to tell you some stark realities. I got a good friend of mine he owns cleaners here in Henry County. This morning I went in and took my bag of clothes to have cleaned, and he said, "Mr. Larry, you need to find me a place to go." And I said, "Why?" He said, "I've lost over 50 of my best clients the last 18 months. And I said, "Really?" He said, "Yes, sir, they've moved." My son does catering, 5-course meals. He did a catering Saturday night of a guy that owned 5 massage places in Henry County, 2 in an adjacent county. He sold them and has moved to Vegas, and he come home to say thank you to friends that he is lifelong friends in Henry County. There was 11 people there, and I'm sure my son will share names with you. There was 11 people there, and they all have either moved or fixing to move from Henry County. Now, you may think everything is hunky-dory and everything is peaches and cream and love and peace, but it's not. And if we keep going down that road, it's only going to get worse. It ain't going to get no better. 3 years from now, I hope people will write it down, date it, time it, say I said it. If not, call me and I'll come back and feed you ribeye steak. But it's going to get the way it was when Eagles Landing was building that bridge, that trestle across I-75. Poor people in Eagles Landing couldn't get on and off 75 because they were building that 8-lane bridge. It's going to be the same way in Henry County because we can't get home because of trucks. It's a sad day that we have taken a glorious rural metropolitan-like county like Henry and are going to make it a quagmire of transportational chaos.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan.
It's a sad day. And I'm going to make another prediction and I'm through.
Okay, you're done. So thank you. We look for the next person. Thank you.
Next election.
Me and you we've been, you go ahead and start the time if you want to.
All right.
Bill Tony, McDonough, Georgia. I believe in going by the rules. And the way you lay it out, I'll follow your rules. But for you to keep coming at me like you've been doing, I've hit the wall. I've had enough. Now, if you want to ask your attorney, he's looking at, and if I'm not getting it right, then somebody needs to tell me, because your interruptions to me is you're treating me like a child, and I'm 71 years old, and it's just not right. It says that I should contact, if I've got a problem with the commissioner, I need to talk to that commissioner. Plain and simple. And if this is on the record now, because if you keep interrupting me, I'm going to seek legal counsel, and I'm not being ugly. I've hit the wall with it. Now, the last meeting that I was here, you got up, and at the end of the meeting, and you wanted to pull everybody together, and I applaud that. You were saying we need the audience to participate. I applaud that. But when I come up here every week, and it's just like tonight, You know, everything's cut and dried before it comes out here. This zoning that went through, it was going to happen whether anybody, if it had been 100 people showed up tonight, that's the way it would have happened. Simple as that. Everything's pre-done before it's here. Me and Larry was being nice on the zoning. We get up here, we let the older people come first where they could say their piece. What happens, me and him standing here, and we asked for the board to give us 5 more minutes or whatever, you know. Not a one of y'all made a motion. Not a one of y'all. And we have Miss Clements there that she is all about her constituents. And I get that. But I'm her constituent too. Where do we stand here looking like nuts and nobody here will make a motion? I asked Mr. Holmes after the meeting, and he said, well, I just wasn't paying attention. That's not right. Pay attention. Y'all draw a salary. Y'all are not volunteers up there. Y'all actually get a good salary from this place and decent benefits from it. Now, tonight, I can thank my commissioner for 230 apartments. Now, the people over in Hampton can thank their commissioner for God knows how many you got over there now. I don't even know how many you brought in. You got warehouses coming in here. I live on 155, and we have tractor trailers flowing down 155 like crazy now. I've never seen this many, and they're going right through the city of McDonough. You think that ain't a mess, and it's going to get worse. When those warehouses south of McDonough open up, it's going to get worse. You won't even be able to move in that city. It's crazy. Y'all need to get the infrastructure right before you start letting all this stuff come in. We don't have it. You had a judge here tonight. I mean, this guy was just about begging for your help because he don't have enough. Now, you know, I've been coming here now for 6 years, trying to make it right. All you have to do is do your job right. Y'all do the right things. You won't see me. I won't be here. You know, just do what you're supposed to do. We're talking about spending, God knows, $140 million. We can't even run a golf course. How can we run a convention center? How can we run an amphitheater? And we've got this golf course sitting over there. You got all the property in the world, and you still don't know what to do with it. I don't get it. I don't get it. Y'all need to wake up and figure out what's going on here. We don't need 230 apartments, and I am totally disgusted with my commissioner. I'm totally disgusted. And, you know, you can smug all you want. All right, thank you.
Thank you. We invite up our next citizen. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, Chair, Madam Chair, and Commissioners. My name is Marquise Bird, and I reside in Henry County, and I want to express my concern with the agricultural land off of Flippin that was approved last month to be developed into 390 plus residences, and the impact it will have on Henry County citizens in the area and throughout the county. As we all know, that Flippin Road is like a cut through when the traffic on 75 is backed up, and with it being a 2-lane road without any foreseeable widening of it, with Georgia DOT having a part ownership of it with the overpass right there. And I know it might be years down the road before everything is developed, and hopefully things will get better in the area. But I just feel like that will be a major traffic nightmare, as well as overcrowding in the schools. And I'm not really going to get into school aspect because I don't have any school-age children in school yet, but I'm just concerned with that area and how it will be developed. So I'm just hoping that the traffic study that will be done will enable a lot more developing of flipping potentially to open it up, and at the very minimum give it a middle lane, turn lane at least. And I know they have the drives offs for entering and exiting the subdivision, but I'm just concerned with that area growing as it is with that land. And I heard last month about the floodplain of the creek that's going through there, and it's not my job. I mean, it's probably not even your job. It's the job of a lot of more people in the county to understand all of that. But I just don't foresee how it's going to be beneficial to the county to have that. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for hearing me tonight.
Thank you. I think that concludes our public comment section. So at this, did we? Oh, I'm sorry, did we?
That was all that signed up. That's my
Oh,
understanding.
okay, I'm sorry, did you, I don't think that the three that were signed in, correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. Okay. So at this time now, we'll move to the next item regarding the approval of the minutes for the February 5th regular Board of Commissioners meeting. Were there any changes or revisions to those minutes? Hearing none, the floor is now open for a motion for approval.
Move to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussions? All in favor? Thank you. We're now moved to the Commissioner comment section. Are there any comments by the Commissioner? Any? Okay. All right, hearing none, we'll now move to the County Manager's comment section.
Good evening, Chair and board members. I would like to defer my comments to the county attorney this evening. He wants to provide the board with an update.
Thank you. So, as you are all aware, the General Assembly is in session and will be until, I think, the first week of April. As you probably are also aware, back in 2005, the General Assembly created an entity called the Henry County Governmental Services Authority. That authority was created for the purpose of basically operating roads, streets, and bridges and obtaining loans and such to build those. I'm not really sure what the reasoning behind doing it was, but it was done in 2005. A county governmental services authority is a pretty common creature. A lot of counties have them. Ours is very narrow. Ours is authorized originally only for roads, streets, and bridges. And then in, I believe it was in 2012, it was expanded for airports. So in the context of discussing both the stormwater dam projects that we discussed last month and today's capital improvements projects, we've determined that we really need to consider expanding the Henry County Governmental Services Authority to all governmental services. Stormwater, public buildings, public facilities, courthouses, recreational facilities. The Governmental Services Authority, just like the Urban Redevelopment Agency, is a really good tool to have to allow you to engage in financing. And we want to make sure that we're not limited to just roads, streets, and bridges or airport, because frankly, you're not going to borrow money for roads, streets, and bridges using an authority like this. And while the airport's certainly a worthy place, there's a lot of other mechanisms for us to fund our airport. So the most important tool that this authority can provide for us really isn't authorized yet. Now, to fix it, we have to have the General Assembly amend the act that created this authority. And we can do that. So my expectation is that at the next board meeting, and we'll certainly give you all a good briefing before then, But at the next board meeting, I'll be presenting to you a resolution asking you to ask your local legislative delegation to create a local act amending this authority to allow us to use it for more purposes, more broad purposes, like most other of these authorities have. The General Assembly will then have to consider it as a local act. We're on a little bit of a short time leash. I have discussed this with 2 members of the legislative delegation. I will be trying to discuss it with all of the members of our legislative delegation over the next week or so that when it hits their desks, if it hits their desks, they'll be prepared to move forward with it or not. Well, at least it's going to require this board and the legislative delegation to agree to it. So I just wanted you to be aware of it, so when you hear from me or county management team about this, you'll have some idea of what it is and why we're talking about it now. If the next board meeting's on March 5th, if this board approves the request at that time, that will give us all sufficient time to get it through both chambers of the legislature, of the General Assembly, and present it to the government. And we'll go over it in a lot more detail in March, but I just wanted you to have just a brief understanding of what it is I'll be calling and talking to you about over the next several days.
Okay. Commissioner Barr.
Yes, Patrick, on another note, this new House Bill 302, could you kind of run through that thing and tell us what we can expect?
That's the one that limits our zoning authority. Yes, so, you know, you never really know why the General Assembly considers laws it considers or whether or not it'll pass, and I don't really have a feel for whether or not that act will pass. But basically what has happened is a legislator has proposed an amendment to the law in Georgia that would deprive local governments of the ability to dictate things like exterior construction of your home. So if you think about our zoning ordinances and frequently, and when we approve residential zonings and even commercial zonings at times, we dictate or we prohibit certain types of cladding on the house. We require brick, stone, stucco, combination, hardy plank siding, things like that. We may require certain pitched roofs. We may require certain elevations and wraps on the structure of the house. We might even require, like we did today, some limitations on the number of bedrooms. That law would strip local governments of the authority to use their zoning powers for those things. It is of questionable constitutionality, but it's a long way from that debate happening. But that is a law that is pending. I would urge you, if you find that to be objectionable, contact your legislators. I have actually called the General Counsel's office at the ACCG and asked what position they're taking. They're going to oppose it, not strongly, but they'll oppose it. And I've asked them if there's a push for local governments to approve resolutions in opposition of it. I was told to hold off on that for now and let them see what they want to do. They may ask us to do that, and you may choose to do that on your own. But that law would be a bit of an erosion of your traditional zoning powers, which are zoning powers really are delegated to the counties and the cities. And I expect most every county, most every city will be in opposition to that law. So it's a troubling law from the context of sort of the separation of powers between state governments and local governments. And I think it's probably going to get a whole lot of attention at the Capitol.
Thank you.
All right, is there anything else from the county management's office?
No, ma'am, not at this time.
Okay. Well, we're now moving to our notice of upcoming meetings and events. On March the 5th, there will be a regular Board of Commissioners meeting at 9 o'clock. And then on March 19th at 6:30 p.m. will be a Board of Commissioners meeting. We again want to remind all constituents about the SPLOST 5 committee meetings that are being held on Thursdays at 6:30 p.m. The next one is on February the 28th at Timber Ridge Elementary School. And then the one on March the 7th is going to be at Cotton Indian Elementary School. And then one on March the 21st here at the Henry County Administration Building. So hearing that there are no other further agenda items, we call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
And a second. All in favor? Thank you.